Hello everyone, you're welcome to this lesson. In this video, you're going to solve this question I have on the board. The question says, use Gaussian elimination and Guass-Jordan elimination to solve the following system of linear equations. So let's look at how you are going to solve this question. So we've been given this system of equations here, and we have to use Gaussian elimination and then Guass-Jordan elimination. So first of all, we are going to solve it using the Gaussian elimination, then we will follow it by the Guass-Jordan elimination. Okay, so for the Gaussian elimination approach, what you're going to do is that you are going to reduce the equations towards a row echelon form. Okay, then we use back substitution to solve it. And then for the Gaussian elimination, the Gauss-Jordan elimination, you're going to reduce the system of equations to reduced row echelon form. Then we solve for the unknown variables. So I will start by writing the augmented matrix for the equations. Okay, so we have -2, 1, -1, and then 4. And then we have 1, 2, 3, and 13. And we have 3, 0, 1, and then -1. So this is what we have. Okay, so once we use the Gaussian elimination to solve it. Alright, so you can see that I've written some operations here. Those are the operations that you can perform in order to solve this question. The first one says you can interchange any two rows. The second one says you can multiply a row by a non-zero constant. And then the third also says you can add a multiple of one row to another. So those are the operations that you are going to perform in order to solve this question. So for the Gaussian elimination, okay, we want to reduce this system of equations to a row echelon form. Okay, so what that means is that I want all these diagonal values to be 1, okay, and then all the values below the diagonal values to be 0, okay. So for row echelon form, the diagonal values must not necessarily be 1, okay. They can be other non-zero values, okay, but in this case, I want them to be 1 since you are going to be using Gauss-Jordan elimination also. So you are going to try and make all these values 1, and then the values below them 0. Okay, so let's look at that. So because I want the first value here to be 1, what I'll do is that I'm going to interchange row 1 and then row 2. Okay, so that'll be the first operation. So we're going to interchange row 1 and then row 2. So row 1 becomes row 2 and then row 2 become row 1. Okay, so let's look at that. So if I do that, this is what you're going to have. So you're going to have 1, 2, 3, and 13. Okay, and then also going to have -2, 1, -1, and then 4. Then you're going to have 3, 0, 1, -1. Okay, so now this is what you have. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do is that I want to make this value here 0, and then make this value to 0. Okay, this is already 0, so let's leave it. But in the course of the calculation and it changes, then you have to finally make it 0 again. Okay, because we want to make this value 0. Okay, so now our main goal is to make this value 0 and then make this also 0, right? So let's look at what we are going to do. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to say that let our new row 2 be equal to the current row 2, okay, plus 2 times row 1. Okay, so this will be our new row 2. And also, because we want to make this also 0, our new row 3, okay, will become the current one, row 3, okay, plus -3 multiplying row 1. Okay, so you can get 0 here. Okay, this is what I'm going to have. So I can write this as row 3 minus 3 times row 1, right? So now let's carry out these operations, and then look at what you are going to have. So let me write this. So for the matrix, I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, and then 13. Okay, so now let's leave row 2 and 3 because you want to get new values for those two rows. Okay, so for row 2, our new values will be what? Row 2 plus what? 2 times what? Row 1, right? So now let's look at that. So let's find a new row 2 values. Okay, the first one will be minus 2 plus what? 2 times the value what? Row 1, which was 1. This will give us 0, right? Let's move on to the second value. So we're going to have 1 plus what? 2 times 2. Okay, right? Now what? 1, this one here. Okay, plus what? 2 times what? These 2 here. Right? So this will give us a value for 5. And then the next one, how what? Minus 1 plus, okay, 2 times 3. This will give us a value of what? 5 also. Okay, and then we have 4, right, plus 2 times 13. Okay, let's see what we're going to get. So 4 plus 2 times 13. That gives us a value for 30. So these are our new values for root 6. So we're going to have 0, 5, 5, 30. Okay. So now let's do same for row 3. We have the operation that we are going to use, right? So the new row 3 should be what? The previous one minus what? 3 times what? Row 1. Okay, so now this is our row 3 now. So we're going to have 3 minus what? 3 times row 1, which is what? 1, right? So the first value was 0, right? And then the second value was 0 minus what? 3 times what? 2, right? This 0 here minus what? 3 times what? This 2 here. So this will give us a value of what? Minus 6, right? The next value was 1 minus what? 3 times 3, right? Which is what? 1 minus 3 times 3. That gives us a value of what? Minus 8, right? Okay. And then the next value is what? We have minus 1 minus what? 3 times what? 13. So let's see. Minus 1 minus 3 times 13. That gives us a value of what? Minus what? 40. So we are going to have 0 minus 6 minus 8 and then minus what? 40. So this is what you are going to have. Okay, so now let's continue. So what you want to do is that you want to make the leading values 1 in this case, okay? And I also want to change this value here to what? 0. So the next thing you are going to do, let's look at the next thing you are going to do. So the next thing you are going to do is that from the second operation that we have here, it says you can multiply a row by what? A non-zero constant, okay? So because I need a 1 here, okay, the current row 2, okay, will become 1 over 5. Okay, our new row 2 become what? 1 over 5 times what the previous one. Okay, so if you do that, this is what you're going to have. You're going to have 1, 2, 3, and 13. Okay, and then you're going to multiply each of these values by what? 1 over 5. So the first one will be 0. This will become 1, right? This will also become 1. And you're going to have 30 divided by what? 5. That gives us what? 6. Okay, this is what you're doing. So now I want to maintain this 0. I want to make this 0, and I also want to make this value what? 1. So let's look at what you are going to do next. Okay, so what we are going to do next is that our new row 3, okay, will be equal to, the current row 3, okay, the current row 3 plus next time for our new row 2, okay, which is what row 2 was star, okay. Alright, so now let's see what you are going to do. So our current row 3 value, we have 0 minus 6 minus 8 minus 40. And then the current row 2 values are 0, 1, 1, 6, right? So now let's look at the new row 3 values. So let's take the first one. You're going to have 0, right? 0 plus 6 multiply what? 0 again, right? That gives us what? 0. Let's move on to the first value. You have what? Minus the next value minus 6 plus 6. Okay, multiplying what? This one here. right? This will give us what? 0, right? Let's move on to the next value. We are going to have minus 8, right? Plus 6 multiplying with 1, which is what this one here. This will give us a value of what? Minus 2. Okay. Let's go to the next value. You have what? Minus 40 plus what? 6 multiplying with 6, right? Let's see. So minus 40 plus 6 multiplying 6. This should give us a value of what? Minus 4. So our new value should be 0, 0, minus 2, minus 4. Okay. So that will be our new root 3. Okay. Now, I want to make this value here to what? 1. Okay. So what I'll do is that I'm going to multiply through the new root 3 by what? A non-zero constant. And then that non-zero constant should be what? Minus half. Okay. So our root 3 star, star, star. Right. That's the fourth one. Okay. Should be equal to minus 1 over 2 times what? Root 3. Okay. I don't know if I made it triple star for the previous one or I'm not really sure, but let's take it this way. Okay. So minus 1 over 2 multiplying r r3, okay, r3 star star star. Okay. I'm going to multiply this value here by what? Minus half. Okay. So if you do that, this this will be our matrix. I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 13. Okay. And then you have 0, 1, 1, 6. Okay. And then you have 0, 0, 1. And then you have what? Minus 4 times what? Minus half. That gives us what? 2. Okay, so this is what they reduced. This is the row echelon form. Sorry, this is what the row echelon form. Echelon form. Okay. And then remember that I said that for row echelon form, the pivot values must not necessarily what be 1. Okay, but in this case, because we are going to be using what Guass-Jordan elimination, that's why I want to make it 1. Okay. Because on a normal circumstance, if you get here, you can just solve them. Okay, you can still what solve them when you get here. But I want to continue to because Jordan elimination. That's why I decided to make it this way. Okay, so from here we're going to have x3 okay to be equal to 2, right? And then we're going to have x2 plus what x3 to be equal to 6. But you already know x2 is what x3 is what 2. So we're going to have x2 plus 2 equals what 6. So our x2 will be equal to what 4, right? Okay, so now let's look at x1. We're going to have x1 okay plus 2 x2 plus 3 x3, right? That should be equal to what 13. Okay, so then have x1 plus 2 x2 which is what 4 plus 3 x3 which is what 2 should be equal to what 13. So I'm going to have x1 to be equal to x1 plus 8 2 times 4 8 plus 3 to 6 which was what 13. Right, so we're going to have x1 to be equal to 13 minus what 14, right? 8 plus 6 will give us 14. So our x1 is equal to what minus 1. So our answers are, then write down here we have x1 to be equal to minus 1, x2 is 4, and then x3 is what 2. Okay, so those are the answers you got when you use the Gaussian elimination. So now you're going to use the Gauss-Jordan elimination approach. Okay, so let's look at that also. Okay, so for the Gauss-Jordan elimination, we already have this matrix here. So let's continue. Let's continue from there. So we have 1, 2, 3, 13. Okay, and then we have 0, 1, 1, 6. We have 0, 0, 1, 2. Okay. So for the reduced row echelon, what you want to do is that you want to make this value here 0. You want to make this to 0. You want to make this to what? 0. Okay. So how are we going to do that? All right. So to make this value here 0, what you're going to do is that let's let's subtract, okay, row 3 from what? Row 2. And then let's make that what? Our new row 2. Okay, so our new row 2, okay, will be equal to what? Will be what? The current row 2 minus what? Row 3, right? Okay, that's what we're going to have. Okay, so now let's see. And then to make this also 0, what you are going to do is that you are going to multiply, okay, row 3 by what? 3, and then subtract it from what? This. Okay, so our new row 1 will be equal to what? Will be what? Row 1 minus what? 3 times what? Row 3. Okay, this is what you are going to have. Okay, so now let's carry that out. Let me just write 0, 0, 1 here, and then 2. Okay, now let's focus on the remaining two rows. So do row 2 first. Okay, which means we are carrying out this operation, right? So row 2, we said that should be what? Row 2 minus what? Row 3, right? So that's what? 0 minus 0, right? That gives us 0. And then the next one will be what? 1 minus what? 0. That also gives us what? 0. The next one will be what? 1 minus 1, which will give us what? So 1 minus 0 gives us 1. 1 minus 1 gives us 0. Right? And then we're going to have what? 6 minus what? 2. Right? Which will give us what? 4. So we're going to have 0, 1, 0, 4. Okay, that's for the new row 2. Okay, so now let's look at the new row 1. So for row 1, 2, you said what? That what? Row 1 minus what? 3 times what? Row 3, right? So let's see. So that will be the first value what? 1 minus what? 3 times the row 3 value, which is what? 0. So this will still give us what? 1. Right? And the next one is what? And the next one is 2. Okay. You have 2 minus what? 3 times. You have 2 minus what? Um, how 1 minus 3 times. Okay. Right, but 2 minus 3 times what? This value here. Right, which is to give us what? 2. Right, and then the next one is you have 3 minus what? 3 times what? 1, which is what this one here. This will give us what? 0, right? And then you have what? 13 minus what? 3 times 2. Okay, that's what we're going to get. We're going to have 13 minus 6. That gives us what? 7, right? So we're going to have the new values to what? 1, 2, 0, and then 7. Okay, this is what we're going to have. Okay, so now the next thing you want to do is to make this value here, these 2 here was 0. Okay, we want to make these 2 here was 0. So how are we going to do that? Let's look at the operation that you are going to use for that also. Okay, so now to make these 3 here 0, what we are going to do is that we are going to say our new row 1, okay, should be the current row 1 minus what? 2 times what? Row 2. Okay, which was this row 2 here. Okay, so now let's do it for the first. Let's do it for the first value. Okay, so we are going to have the first value in row 1, which is what? 1 minus what? 2 times the value in what? Row 2, which is what? 0. Okay, so this will give us what? 1. Right. So our first entry was 1. Okay. So now let's move on to the next one. Our one value was what? 2. So that was 2 minus what? 2 times the output value, which is what? 1. So times what? 1. So this will give us what? 0. So our next entry was 0. So let's move on to the next value. The next value, our R1 is what? 0. So I'm going to have 0 minus what? 2 times the output value, which is also what? 0. So this will also give us what? 0. So this entry also be what? 0. Okay, so now let's look at the last one. So for the last one, we have R1 to what? 7 minus what? 2 times. Okay, R2, which is what? 4. Right, so this will give us 7 minus 8, which is what? Minus 1. So the last value was minus 1. Okay, so now let's rewrite the remaining entries. So we're going to have 0, 1, 0, 4. Okay, and then we have 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 2. Okay, so this becomes the reduced row echelon matrix. Okay, so you see that with this, all the pivot values are 1, and then all the other entries are what? 0. Okay, except the right hand side. Okay, so this becomes what? The reduced row echelon form. Okay, so this is how to do the Guass-Jordan elimination approach. So now we are going to what? Find the variables which are what? X1, X2, and then what? X3. Okay, so you see that it's very easy for us to find these unknown variables. So starting from the last entries, we are going to have what? X3 to be equal to what? 2, right? And then we are going to have X2 to be equal to 4. And then we have what? X1 to be equal to what? -1. Same as what? The answers you got when you use what? The Gaussian elimination approach. So this is how to solve questions like this. If you find this video useful, make sure you like the video and also subscribe if you haven't.